on a pestle race in the afternoon. So you went to bed. End of the story. Twice. I haven't got nowhere.
Yeah,
So I want to do the family tree.
Okay. Well, any help I can do.
Yeah, if you can, guy, would you have to maybe through your contacts in Nicosia? Would there be like? I mean, we've got some.
Well, my sister-in-law lives out there. And she's American and she loves all this kind of
So
stuff.
good.
She traced her family and everything.
Did she?
Yeah.
Because we want to trace
She
ours.
doesn't work and she
because
enjoys things like
we
this. So I'm
would-
sure I can get her to help you.
Yeah, because we also want to get Cypriot passports, you see.
Oh yeah, you need to get those. Yeah. My
Yeah.
husband's got a Cypriot passport.
That's it.
Yeah.
Well, we want to, but we don't
Because we got
have
him because he's American. He couldn't stay in England
Yeah.
unless he had a.
Oh, he's
Yeah.
American, is he?
Yeah.
Your hubby?
Yeah.
But your cousin, you say your cousin or your auntie? Did you just say?
My sister-in-law.
Your sister,
sister-in-law.
she's Greek though.
She's American Greek.
But American Greek, yeah.
Yeah.
See, what I need, we've got, what's it called in London? Summer House.
The embassy.
The embassy.
No, not the embassy, the other place where all the records are kept. Summer House.
Somerville House.
What's
yeah.
it called?
Somerville
Somebody
House.
must know.
Yeah,
Well,
all the records.
I've been trying to find, there must be somewhere in Nicosia where they hold all the
Well, babe,
records.
I'll find out for you.
If you
Yeah.
would please, because
Yeah.
I thought the Baba would tell me from the births,
Death.
deaths, marriages and deaths. And no, you
Because
can't
they
get...
didn't all have birth certificates.
No,
did
they
years
didn't.
ago.
They didn't know when they
And
were
it's
I don't
born.
even know what years they were born. did they?
No.
you
And
know
the
what-
sheriff of
And
the...
did your
Back
mum
days.
have a birth certificate?
Yeah.
Now listen to this, the funny thing
Hang on,
is...
where was your mum? You can tell me in a minute.
Did I should be- Do you know where? But the funny story is very quickly. When I asked somebody the question, they said, right, they put it on every year.
I'm
All
at-
good. Let's go.
Right.
Alright.
I'm going to start off by asking you both to say who you are,
Yeah.
your full names.
No our ages.
No, you don't have to say your ages.
No, we're
And
not
then
gonna-
I'll go alternate between the two and ask you both
Okay.
questions. So we'll start off with you, Barbara. Just explain who you are and where you were born
Right.
and your family, like who your mother
Yeah.
and father. Okay?
Okay, am I ready to roll?
Yeah, look at me.
Okay, right, I'm the third child out of the Pili family. Michael's the eldest.
Hang on, stop.
So,
Oh,
you haven't
sorry.
said who
Sorry,
you are.
sorry, beg your pardon, start again,
You
right.
haven't said who you are.
Right, hello, my name's Barbara Pili. I'm the third child of Artemis and Louis Pili. I've got an older brother, Michael, an older sister, Helen. I come third in line. And I have a sister, Margaret, sitting next to me. And the baby lives in London, who's Anna.
Lovely. Okay. And Margaret, tell me about your mother, where she was born, and a little bit about your mum's early life.
Mum was born in a village in Cyprus called Drashobethela in Paphos, and she is one of the eldest children as of her family. Her mother passed away, unfortunately, on the birth of her last sister, her last sibling, Maria. So Mum had to become mother, sister, housekeeper to the family, as her father was a very strict shepherd who had to really go and work in the field, so he didn't really have time to look after the children. So Mum had to give up her education to go and look after the family, stay at home, and be a stay-at-home, well, child, but also as a mother to the rest of her siblings.
How old was she then at the time, and how many
She
brothers
was
and sisters?
13, 14 at that time. But Mum, I think, would have been a fantastic person, more so than she was, being an educated lady, because she loved learning. She loved books, she loved learning, she loved about animals and countries, and she was really interested in life. And it's sad that her life was so limited to, her way of life to begin with. And also when she got married and had family and children and run 2 businesses and possibly 3, with helping at in my brother's shops as well.
And Barbara, do you think that she would have been allowed to do that? Would her parents quite strict, or would they allowed her if her mother was still around?
No, they were very poor, extremely poor. There's no way, and being the oldest child of 6, what happened when her mum died, she was 14, and Mum went out into service really. She worked for a family, and they went up to Bladrus, and she enjoyed being there in Bladrus. So that brought her out of the village life, but she was responsible for the siblings as well.
So you don't think her dad would have encouraged her?
Well, no, there wasn't the funds. She needed to work to bring money into the family home, really.
So then, Margaret, what happened after that? What brought them?
Mum left to come to England, and she came on a ship, and she couldn't speak very much English anyway, so it was all Greek, and she happened to meet another young lady on the ship. They became friends, But the sad part was when they arrived at Tilsley Docks in London, she left a beautiful country, sunny, bright, and she arrived in Tilsley Docks. It was smoggy, it was dark, it was dismal, dark buildings, and she says, what have I come to? You know, you can imagine somebody coming from a hot country, a small village, to a great big city. But obviously she had to come to earn money, to possibly send money back for her family too, to keep the brothers and sisters going until something, you know, they could get work as well. So it's quite sad, really. That
Was she the only one that came then?
at the time.
Yeah, at the time. Then
She left everyone behind.
then my dad helped to bring the other sisters over and the brothers eventually. But the oldest brother, her oldest brother, next one to Andreas, he went out to Africa in the army. So he was out there. The sad thing is all the children scattered. The youngest one at the time, Maria, was only a baby of 2 when their mother died. So Mum came over and, as Margaret just said, you know, she had the biggest shocks. And she said, oh, she was crying. She had cried so much, she kept telling me, because everything was so black and dark. I want to go back home. So her aim was to go and earn money to get her passage to go back. So she went into the rag trade with the other Cypriot women. They didn't earn a lot of money. And then they had this, what we call the Broxenia. There was a Greek lady there, a Cypriot lady, Melanie, who introduced her to my dad. And that was it. They got engaged, and that was December 1941.
So for people who don't know what Proxenia is, just tell us.
Yes, and that's a matchmaking. She was a matchmaker. And Mum said the first thing when she was very skinny, she said, I didn't fancy him, to be honest with you, she told me. And that's the truth. I didn't fancy your dad, but he was very skinny. And then he was called up into the RAF to go into the war as the war broke out. And unfortunately, Mum got caught up in the war. But she said to me, the good thing is, she said, I started to earn more money on piecework. I had to make the silk parachutes and the uniform. And that was good. She earned more money then. But
so let's rewind a bit then. What happened when she came? How did she get from London to Birmingham, Margaret?
She met a married dad in London.
Oh.
And then my brother Michael was born in London at Middlesex Hospital.
What work did they do then
Mum was in the factories at the time, but she also worked for a doctor.
Yes.
As his nanny for the children,
yeah,
and a housekeeper. And that's how I was told the story, that Mum was introduced to Dad at the home that she was working for, because obviously she didn't know any other Greek people in London at the time unless they were introduced, and this is how Mum and Dad met, which is quite a nice romantic story when you think about it, really. You know, not knowing anybody, she knew this family because she also went to Bournemouth with a family.
Yes.
You know, the seaside town, which Mum used to love the seaside, always. But that's how it was. And then they came to Birmingham and they started to run the first fish and chip shop, which was my father's cousin's shop. And they ran the first shop in Breeder Street in what's at Newtown now. And that's how they started going to the fish and chip trade. And it progressed from there.
So they were the first.
One of the first 5 families. There were 5 Cypriot families, and as you mentioned earlier, the Chulakidi family, they lived very near to us. And the same as Margaret said, they went from Breeder Street to Neutrals Park Road, Gerrard Street, Nursery Road. So it was all sort of the inner city at the time, you know. And they enjoyed the work, and because they didn't have the education. And suddenly, gradually got bigger and bigger with, with the Cypriot. But the good thing our Dad did do for the community, he helped to bring many Cypriot. He sponsored them. He was a guarantor. He stood as guarantor to bring them over from Cyprus. Some to work for us in the fish shop, and then my mum's one by one. My mum's sisters, and the youngest brother, because the other brother was in Africa. Andreas was in Africa in the army. So one by one they came over, and some helped in the shop.
And did they encounter any racism, any difficult times?
Well, yes, in London, my dad told me, when Dad worked, when he first came, Dad, in 1935, he worked in hotels, washing up and whatever he could get. And he picked up a few French words. I remember him saying to me, poulet and things like that, merci and all that. And yes, they did. And I've got to say this truthfully now, but Mum had, we had some people come from the Birmingham libraries to interview Mum about her story. And I remember I was quite shocked when she said it. She said they told her, "You get back to your own country, you bloody bastard foreigners." Excuse me, am I allowed to say that? That's exactly. And I said, "Mum," she said, "that's what they said to me." I said, "Really?" And I didn't realise that there was racism. Well, did we feel it at school? Maybe we did. But, you know, I couldn't believe. My mum remembers those words very well.
So did she speak very good English? At what point did she?
Well, she picked it up. Well, being in the shop with the customers, you're serving them, and you pick pigeon fashion to start with. But then she could hold a proper conversation with her.
And then you were all born, well...
Right, Michael in London, Middlesex Hospital. They came to Birmingham in 1943. Michael was born in the March and they came up in the May, June. So then Helen was born in Dudley Road, what was now the City Hospital, Dudley Road Hospital. 2.5 years later, I was born in Dudley Road Hospital. And then Margaret, 6 years later, in St Chad's, which is now luxury apartments on the Hagley Road. Followed by 4 years later, Anna. Also in St Chad's Hospital on the Hagley Road.
In
Birmingham, Edgbaston.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what happened then during those war years? One of you told me about your father. He was called up.
Yes. He was called up into the RAF. He's a pacifist. He didn't want to go to war. He didn't like violence of any kind. So my mum told me the story. We had such a laugh about it. They came, what they call military police, came to the more or less dragged him out. Said, "You've got to go." He said, "But you've got to go. You don't have a choice. You have to go."
But your brother was too young.
Oh no, Michael wasn't born then.
Oh, okay.
So don't forget, he was the 1930s, 19...
So they had the long war years in London.
Oh yes,
They did.
yes.
Yeah.
But I mean, the war didn't finish to 45, but they came to Birmingham in 43.
They were in London in the Blitz, and Mum used to say she was so frightened.
It was dreadful.
When the war was and the bombs were hitting, because apparently it hit one road away from where they were living, and you know, obviously it's very frightening, isn't it? The sirens go. She's not used to anything like this coming from Cyprus. You don't hear of this, do you, really? So she had to struggle as well to bring up a child as well in London.
But the one thing I do remember, she told me when she came up, they went all go down to the underground when the sirens went off, and she had the biggest shock. So when I came out the underground, I saw all these dead bodies. She said I had to step over these dead bodies. It stuck in her mind. She could never get over that. You know, she naive girl from a little mountain village, really. In Bathurst.
Did she ever want to go home back to Bathurst?
Oh yes,
Many times.
she did. But once she had the businesses, then the 5 children came along, and when I think now, we think the women have got hard working, but what she told me was Helen was a baby. She used to prop the milk bottle up, right, with the pillows and that, and rush into the shop to serve.
Yeah.
Hard times. No washing machine.
No.
All by hand, and then we eventually had laundrettes, and I had to go down the laundrette with all the washing.
Well, Mum used to descale all the fish because it used to come from Grimsby on the ice with heads and everything on.
That's right.
And she used to have to descale it,
Bone it, everything.
fillet it, bone it, cut it into portions and everything. So it was really hard in them days, and it was always in the cold waters. And this is why I think through Mum's life she got the arthritis really bad. You know.
So what do you think? Because obviously in our culture it's quite a male-dominated culture, and I guess back then when
she was a strong woman. Mum's a strong woman.
Do you think she just took over, or just
she had to?
I think Mum actually was the mainstay in the businesses. But I'll tell you another thing she said to me. How funny! She said when Helen was born, she brought them a lot of luck because the business just took off. I remember her saying that.
Was the first girl,
first daughter, yeah. And when I was born, she said I was supposed to be a boy. And because I've done a lot of travelling, I'm quite gutsy. She said, "You should have been a boy."
Yeah. They do say, girls bring wealth, don't they?
They do. Isn't it funny that? Yes. But they did. It was a hard life. I don't think we realised because although we were born here, Mum was very strict with speaking Greek, and I'll never forget this because we were bilingual from babies. But when we went to school, of course we come home speaking English. And I must tell you this because I've got Mother. You're there. Michael, Helen and I used to sit at the table and Mum used to have a little verkua, a little cane. If I used to, boop. She said, "Mr. Speedy," sorry, it's in English, "you've got to speak Greek in the house." And if Mum hadn't been strict with us, because a lot of the Greek people, they do not speak very good Greek, and she insisted, "Now thank you, Mother," because we would not have spoken. And then we went to the Greek school in the church after that.
What was Greek school like?
I loved it. No, I enjoyed it. I was the only one that stuck it out. The others backed off.
No, we didn't. We all went because Mum insisted, and Dad. because it was in the church then, the school was.
Apostol Andreas.
But Mum used to say,
Yeah.
Monday to Friday it's English school. Come Saturday when, you think you've got a day away from school.
Work in the shop.
School. Greek school or working in the fish shop. And
Did
that's
you
what it
guys
was.
encounter any racism or anything when you were at school?
I didn't
did.
personally.
I did.
You said you did. I didn't.
What kind of thing? Just
Oh, you go back to your country. You're Greek, you are. You're not English.
I never had that.
You're not English. Look at your dark hair and just little nibs of things that people try to think because you're slightly different. But the good thing was that when I was at one of my secondary schools, a Greek family came from Cyprus.
Yeah.
And she could not speak English a word. And it was Fanu,
Yeah.
George Best's sister, who came, and the family didn't know anybody.
Good meet his family.
And I introduced the family to our family because I was asked to go to the headmaster's office and I had to translate from Greek to English.
were they refugees or just?
No, they came as a family, and then the rest of them used to start working for the fish shop. The mom used to help us out, help mum in the kitchen and cooking and looking
Washing
after
and
myself and Anna, washing and cleaning the clothes. George Best then used to work for us.
In the shop with me.
Zachariah, his brother. So the family then got introduced by me meeting them at school.
Did you think that upbringing just made you a bit more strong and more resilient?
Yes, it had to be because we found it strange. We came from Cypriot family living in England, and we weren't allowed to have boyfriends to go out like the other girls. So they thought we were strange there anyway. It was hard to be like the Asian girls today. You're trying to fit in with your culture, but at the same time around you, things are completely different. So one thing I have got about, if I'm allowed to say, is the Cypriot community is, Dad was a bit lenient with us going out a little bit, and it was brought to our parents' attention that we were. And if you were seen talking to a boy, everything else had happened as well. But no such thing happened. It did one thing I must tell you about my dad. Helen and I took us to the Locarno dance hall in Her Street in Birmingham. It was a New Year's Eve, and when looking back now, I could laugh. He was a chaperone. Right, we went, it was snow, so you go in them days, you take your boots with you, go in your boots, take your little shoes with you. And I remember him sitting upstairs on the balcony, watching us dancing, and no other Greek people but ever any father do that. And I was telling somebody else's story. We walked home that night, no buses, you put your boots back, and the snow was really deep, and everyone shouting, Happy New Year, Happy New Year. And we walked all the way from the city down to Lozells.
Dad chaperoned you?
Dad was with us, and he loved it. He absolutely loved it. I mean, because the naughty thing is, some of the men did, Greek guys, Cypriot guys, they would be there dancing, and they were married men. I know that for a fact, And we were quite naive, but we did go dancing, not often, but we because all of us would be. Especially my dancers like Helen and I love. Well, I think
we all do.
And because we wanted to dance, but of course they saw other things into it that our minds didn't even think about, But that thing it's a shame because all communities, like the Asian community now, they do the same thing to their girls. But it was hard. I found it confusing, having to adhere to the Greek Cypriot ways, but living in England.
Mum
I
and
never
Dad
understood
were very
that.
strict. They would not allow us to go out with friends.
Oh,
School
no.
friends. I was invited to a school dance at the end of my second year school. And my friends came and begged my mum and dad to let me go. And they said, it's just at a college, la, we'll bring us straight back. No, very, very strict. My dad, I remember when I did go out, he'd be standing at the door. And this would happen. 11 o'clock on the dot, if you weren't in, he'd open the door, start walking up the street looking for you.
Very strict.
And what did he say about who you had to marry or anything like that?
Oh, that's a story.
Actually,
I had it.
Barbara did. I didn't. He was a bit more lenient because he met my husband.
Yes,
and
it's
he
different.
liked Frank. He liked him because he
Let's
was.
start off with him, Barbara.
But the lady you just come from, Chilokidis, what's her name? What's her name again?
Zenidis.
Yeah, no, her first name.
Maria.
Yeah, Maria. The story goes, they wanted to arrange a marriage for me. Now, I'm going to make you laugh. I was 17 and I planned to go with my girlfriend ice skating. Mother said, we have to go because I go, listen, we have to go. We've been invited to this house over in Quinton. And this is her mum, Maritza. We went into the house. I said, it's so funny. Oh, there's Neil. We went into the house and I sat down on the settee. Oh, you must not sit there. You must sit up on the higher chair. So I said, excuse me, to be seen by this guy that was coming with his family for tea. Well, I'll tell you, so funny, because his name was Elias. I was 17, he was 13, and he was bold. Anyway, I sat up there and I kept thinking, I've got to meet Bernard, I'm going skating tonight. So we talked, and what they did to me, which really is naughty, I laugh now. Maritza said, let's go upstairs, and let's come and see the house upstairs. Well, they two went up, and I'm behind. And somebody told me to turn around, and I turned around, and he's at the bottom of the stairs, getting the back view of me. Anyway, cut the long story short, we got back home. A couple of weeks later, they're ringing my mum. Well, he liked Barbara, so shall we, get the engagement? And then mother, I'm going to mum. No, because I was an apprentice hairdresser and I was in the contract. No. And they said, well, mum said she's a bit young, she's got to finish a hairdressing apprenticeship. All the excuses, but they kept pushing and pushing. And as we say in Greek, not that they also meant to end the story. Because I said, no. And I remember saying this, maybe I shouldn't have said it, but I said, I'm not a cow, I'm not going to be sold. I'm sorry. But that's exactly what I was saying. And then at a later date, we're still in Gerard Street.
This one.
A later date, there's another one, they came, they were going on and on and on. Oh no, that's another one, that's good.
She got it.
There was another one, because we used to go to the weddings, that was our social life, the Greek weddings. Somebody else, they said, a nice boy in this family and this good family. I said, look to mum and dad, please don't push me, because if it doesn't work out, I want it to be my fault, not to blame you. Please don't. I wanted to travel, and I did. I wanted to travel. They were totally against it. And I said, look, don't stop me. And I said, no, looking back at my life now, I went on my first cruising ship at 4 weeks old. And then I went back to go and work on a ship at a later date. And I've been on many ships since. And I said, don't stop. I want to see the world. Look, if you think I'm going to do something, I can do it here. I don't need to go to Spain.
That must have been so unusual, though.
Oh, very.
Yeah.
That's why we were talked about. We were famous even then.
So do you think, people would say,
oh yes,
enough,
of course.
Yeah.
Of course. I mean, you see, Mum and Dad would come home sometimes if we don't go to church with them and say that they've been talked about. Helen was seen talking to... Helen used to work in Lewis's, what used to be John Lewis in them days. And when you're working with colleagues, you're going to speak to them more, to us it was quite innocent. Oh, go on, André, and all this. But luckily, my dad, in one way, he was lenient in that way.
He was.
And I tried to explain to my dad, I said, look, don't push me, because the more you push me, the more I'm going to back off. It's different today. They go to the weddings, they meet, and I know they're not chaperoned like they were then when they got engaged.
It's a lot different.
It's all different. It's more all open. But it really was very hard. I was very confused as a teenager, very confused.
I was more luckier.
You Nana.
Yeah.
I was more luckier because I brought, funny enough, it's a funny story. I was upstairs in my bedroom talking to Frank, my husband. We used to be youth leaders. That's how we met in Newtown. We went to Newtown Youth Club. And he used to say to me, if they want to meet me, because we were just chatting, we weren't an item then, tell them to come round to the centre, because they were living then, they weren't in business then, to see what in Newtown.
Yeah, sorry.
And see what the centre's like, because we were helping out other youth people. So I became a youth leader because I liked it. It was a bit of freedom for me. I've never had anything like this.
No.
So Frank and I then obviously became an item, and I'm talking to him at the window because his friend used to live across the road from us. I'm talking to him at the window. My mum's doing the garden. I didn't know. And I'm talking to Frank at the window. Mum says, Margaret. And I'm, oh God, my mum. She stopped me. And she says, she went up to Frank. She says, Margaret is very rude. She should invite you into the house.
Oh. I wasn't there then.
To Frank. No, you weren't there.
I was abroad.
She took to Frank. My dad used to love talking to Frank because he looked upon him as another son.
Yeah.
Because Frank used to have the time when my brother didn't to sit down and talk to him about anything and everything. They used to have philosophy talks and talks about this, talks about that, and he loved it. He loved to be able to express himself.
You didn't have the big fat Greek wedding.
Oh no, I didn't have the big fat. No, but there's one thing Dad did say to me. Because I was the first to get married before Barbara in 1973. He did. We had a registry office to begin with, because Dad was unwell in those years. Dad had a couple of heart attacks prior to all this. So I got married after Michael. I got married in 70. Michael got married in 71. I got married in 73. But my parents always said to me, after Father had the first heart attack, he said, although you got married in the Richie office, my wish is, before anything happens to me, that you get married in the Greek church, which I did have then, a Greek wedding. Not a massive one, just a family, but just to do it in the Greek church, the Greek way. You know, with the...
Stefano.
Yeah, Stefano.
The crowns.
Yeah.
And do it that way.
So did your parents always try and retain the Greek culture, whatever they
Oh
did?
yes,
They did.
Well, I got married in the Greek church too. He was English, my husband. I met him on the ship I was working on, a Londoner, and we also had a Greek. We also, we had to go to the registry office wedding first, and then we also had a Greek Orthodox wedding in Apostolos Andreas, St Andrews now. We both did, and Michael did as well. Yes.
Mine was 2 years later though. So
Yeah.
when people say to me, how many times have you been married? I play them up. I say twice.
Twice.
And they
Well, I
say,
did twice.
who? I says, yeah, married twice. One the rich office. 2 years later in the Greek
Mine was
church.
3 weeks later. But and I'm very much for the culture. We do cook the Greek food, don't we? I go probably more. I did the Greek school. I used to do the poems and that. I remember standing up on a chair once when I was little to say being mad of the poems and that, and the 25th of March and a lot of things like that, because I took Mum quite a lot. And then of course when I've been away in recent years, Margaret's taken her.
In fact, Frank used to take my mum
Yeah.
a lot
Yeah.
to the Greek church, because she'd always say to me as Mum was growing older, "Is Frank coming to take me to church
Yeah.
tomorrow?"
She
Is Frank
liked him.
coming in fact, the week before Mum passed away,
Yeah.
she thought Frank was going to go and take her to church.
She used to
Exactly,
plead with
yeah.
us, and you see those years when I used to stick with her, she loved those Thursday, Friday and Saturday. We used to, because Mum had a little cushion in the cupboard, in the one of the schoolrooms. It was there, because she used to go in with the walking sticks, go and get her little cushion to sit down at the very back stall at the back by the heaters, and she'd be sitting there, and this is when I remember seeing you distinctly. We used to sit there, and she loved it. We used to there to 2 or 3, then I'd take her home, then we'd have something to eat. I'd come home almost daylight,
So what? Just tell me that story about the people that used to come in the chip shop, because I want to get back.
Oh
to
yes,
Oh,
get
yes,
back to that.
Well,
now.
I've got
The
a
bus
video
drivers.
somewhere as well. But you see, what happened was, we were on the number 8 in a bus route at that time, and it was on the corner, it was on the main road. So the buses used to stop, and of course, in them days, if you've got food, you don't throw it away, you sell it. The funny thing is, on the video that I've got, the bus driver came in, he went blood red, because I'm taking video of him, right? It was not video, Super 8 in them days. And he goes blood red, he had a piece of fish, and on the old cash register, I rang up 1 shilling and 6 pence.
6 shillings.
One pence and 60 pence.
But
And then the customers could see, I said, oh, well, you wouldn't be allowed to do that. They used to get off the bus and come in and get fish and chips,
Yeah,
take back on the bus with them.
because the bus driver had a conductor on with him as well.
In
So
them
they
days.
used to all come in and get fish and chips. And there's other times when they would stop the bus, come in and get, and then we used to say to customers, do you mind if we serve the driver?
Yes.
And they always said, no, that's fine.
Yeah.
They'd come to the front of the queue, we'd do their fish and chips, and then the customers would get up, the buses and the passengers would come off, and then they would start getting fish and chips. It's quite funny, really. But when they redirected the traffic, when they were doing 6 ways,
Oh, they're right, yeah.
That Aston
Yeah,
now.
the underscreen.
they came up Wilson Street, and it was an opportunity, because Michael was a Villa fan. It was an
Yeah.
opportunity for Michael to put the scores up on the side window, because we were a corner shop,
Oh, yeah.
to put the scores up. So everybody used to know the scores, and think, oh, we'll go to that fish shop, because it used to pass.
Yeah.
So we had a lot of passing trade from that, because it was quite residential. Other than that,
Oh, yes, it was.
It was the only fish shop for some miles.
No,
Really.
no competition whatsoever.
So how long did they run that? You run that for?
I'll tell you that we went there in 60, I was 11. Went there about 60 to 69, and then it was compulsory purchase by the council, which was sad.
They were being demolished.
It's all new houses there now, so didn't get much, probably a few £100. So we had to move out, and they took us down to not far away, which is called Newtown now. Brand new houses, brand new houses.
Close.
That's when they came out of the business for a while, and it was Michael then that went in afterwards, wasn't it? After that, but it's really strange. And yet, Mum, and because they were not in a fish shop, Mum went off. She saw the lollipop man or lady crossing the children. Well, I can do that. So she went and applied. Can you believe? She used to cross the children. William Cowper, it's called.
William Cowper.
Cowper on Summer Lane. But there was a Greek family, and then Marco remembered. Greek family up on Newtown Row had a fish shop, and Mum used to run there as well and do part-time there, and then come back and do the crossing. And she used to bring her lollipop the thing home with her.
But the funny part about Mum being the lollipop lady, she used to tell the drivers off. She used to tell the drivers off. And you know, even then, although she wasn't fully educated, she used to take down the numbers of the cars. And she'd tell the driver, you stay there, the children have got to cross first.
You could do it then, though.
And do you know who else she crossed? What's his name? Baddy?
Irenaeus.
Irenaeus.
But the bit there, I've got, she's in one of our local, the Newtown News I've got, the bus used to come up and she used to go, stop, like that. She used to put her hand out, stop. And we'd see people were much nicer than them. I mean, today they probably run you down.
More respectful.
Very nice people, very poor people, but very nice people.
The children
Salt of the earth.
used to love Mum. And Christmas, they'd bring her all these presents, make her special cards, and that was really nice to Mum.
She loved the kids.
That was a career after her chip shop days then.
Well,
yes.
Not her own shop, but working for, yes.
And the lollipop lady.
But you know, she used to go out in all weathers. You know,
everything.
The snow, the rain, and she was older.
She must have been.
She's got to be late 60s.
Must have been. She left, yes.
So, how did she talk about Cyprus? Was she fond of it? Did she miss it?
Oh yes, we talked a lot about Cyprus because I used to take her over. I took in some summers. We did have like a little holiday place in Limassol, Amathus actually, a holiday flat there, and one of us needed to. Michael used to go. I went. We needed to go and deal with all the paperwork and everything. And when I used to take her to the beach, even on a walking stick, I took her into the sea with the walking sticks.
All of us.
Do you know, it was so funny. We used to meet Russian people. And once I sort of I wanted to swing around. Mum, are you going to drown me? I said, I'm not going to drown you, Mum. But she loved it. She loved the beach. She loved the sea. And I buried her one year. I must tell you this because I read somewhere that there's healing properties from hot sand. And I've got a photograph somewhere. I buried Mum completely in the sand. You just got to head there with a scarf on her head. And you know, when we came back to England, for the next 3 to 6 months, there was no pain from the arthritis. Really?
But she always loved going to the sea.
She wanted to go back.
She'd walk into the sea with the 2 walking sticks.
Yeah.
So one year when my sister and I, Anna, took her,
Yeah.
we put the chair from the swimming pool at the water's edge, and she'd sit and we'd throw the seawater on her legs.
It's good for you.
And she used to love it. And another time, the same year that we took her, when the bouzouki music was on at night, she'd get up and dance with her walking sticks.
With the walking sticks, really?
And everybody in the hotel would come up and dance with Mum. And she loved it.
Well, it was her dream to go back to Cyprus to finish her days. Now, I was out there running a pub with my husband, an English-style pub. And I was looking around. She wanted me to look around for a house, you know, in the sort of the areas, in the neighbourhoods. And I was looking, because she said to me, because I was out there then, she said, you're established there now, I want to come out. And that was, but I'm afraid life gets in the way. And it didn't happen. And, you know, but to say, Margaret, our last trip, unfortunately, in 2006, we knew she was being quite ill. And I was pleading with the doctors. They had to sign her off before we could, okay, with insurance to go. And they said, well, she said to us, we knew it would be the last time. We knew. She knew. We knew. And we wanted to do it for Mum, to let her see her homeland one more time. Just one more time. And she said became very ill with food poisoning. And after the very first day, and unfortunately, thank God for the good age concerned insurance, because Margaret came back with Katie, her daughter. I stayed with Mum in the private hospital, St. Raphael, in Larnaca. Fortunately, there was another bed. And unfortunately for the insurance, because it was costing thousands, she had every treatment under the sun. And thank God, and she was brought back on a stretcher on the plane, and then had to go to hospital in Hillingdon. From there, she was transferred by ambulance, myself, back to Birmingham and back into City Hospital. So it was a very long, and I ask her now, I used to ask her, Mum, she said, I don't remember anything. And really, she was at death's door, really. It was very sad.
How did she feel about because you guys must have watched it on TV when 1974 happened.
Yes, I just left.
Her sister,
Gardina.
was in Famagusta, and she was knocked on the door by the soldiers, the army, saying, we're coming back, we're giving you 1 hour, to get what you can, as little as possible, obviously, your passport, and we're flying you to the bases. They went to Akrotiri.
Well, yeah, because she had a British passport, she was fortunate. But I remember, because this is the auntie I stayed with in Cyprus, she stood up in the clothes she had, and all of her coats, her photos, everything personal to her, everything. She walked out with a little case, got to Akrotiri, like Margaret just said, and we put out on the radio, because we thought, we don't know if she's dead or alive, so we put out an announcement for her, and it came back that she was alive, and she'd been flown to London. She came.
And she came.
She came back. But she used to live in London. She went back to Cyprus, but obviously she was hoping to stay then. But unfortunately, she had to come back.
It was very sad. Do you know where we were when we heard it? I think you were with us. We were on the beach in Great Yarmouth. Were you with me?
Yes.
And we had a transistor radio, and we heard the invasion taking place. I never forget it. Everyone around us was enjoying, and I was horrified because we heard there were 40,000 Turkish soldiers that landed and was marched through everywhere from the north and down to Famagusta. And I was horrified because I'd lived there with my auntie and I knew what it was like. Beautiful place, Famagusta, beautiful. Beautiful.
Tell us about the reputation it had in the 70s, the film stars, what was it like?
Oh yeah, the Famagusta was the icon, it's the star place. The beaches, the King George hotels, what was the other one I can't think now? Wonderful hotels. It really was a beautiful base, sandy beaches. It was really, I felt very privileged to be there because our parents never took us there, But it was wonderful. I mean, as I say, I worked on this beach restaurant, literally, and to watch everybody coming on the skin and everything swimming there, and we used to get all the people from Lebanon, and it was an open air restaurant and an indoor, and we used to have lots of open air parties, and it was an idyllic life, really. But as I say, and I was lucky, I just left to go, I had this offer to go and work on a ship, a British ship, but you had to be flown out to join the ship in Australia. So that's why I left Cyprus. But I didn't want to leave Cyprus, really. But then I couldn't forego this one only chance to go and travel the world,
So how did your mother feel hearing what was going on in the war?
She was very upset, especially about her sister. Yeah. Because obviously we didn't know what had happened. And other relatives that we had out there, and all the villages that they knew people as well. Long distance, village people that they grew up with.
Well, fortunately, Mum's side was Paphos, so they didn't get as far as Paphos.
No, but it's a small island, isn't it? So
yes.
You see what's going on in your home country.
But that's the saddest part, because I remember Dad was saying to me, it's only 22 miles across.
Oh, yes, from Turkey, mainland Turkey.
No, the island is only 22 miles across.
Oh, yes.
It's only as big as Coventry, really, when you think about it.
Yeah.
And it was invaded. But why? When the people were living close next to
it's
Turkish
political.
And Cypriots.
We know it's more political, together, isn't it?
And then this happened, and it goes against the grain, doesn't it? Really.
Have you seen a picture of what Famagusta looks like now?
Not recently, but I did see programs where they were interviewing Cypriot people about the Green Line. It was called the Green Line, I think. The program.
The Green Line was there when we went.
But the sad thing is, I knew of a young man who used to work with us in the restaurant then, and I know of him. I'm trying to think of his name. He was disappeared completely, never been heard of from me. I know over 300 had disappeared. I watched this programme. But and the fact that I knew, I think if you don't know the place, you surmise. But because I've been there and I worked with the Famagusta people and all that, it was really heartbreaking. It was very sad.
But it's like when English people say to you, which side do you come from? I said, excuse me, there's no side. My parents came from one island, and it's one country, and that's Cyprus. It's not divided as far as we're concerned, as it was, but now it is. No fault of where our parents came from. But when people say that upsets me. I think that's not right. You can't say that.
But the good thing is, when I used to go and visit my uncle, Mum's brother Andreas, up in Suskew, which was a Turkish village, the story they all told me was they lived hand in hand. Turkish Cypriot, Greek Cypriot, and they spoke each other's language. So when the invasion happened, all of the Turks came out of those villages and went, or they took the mainland or the north. So all these places were abandoned. So my Uncle Andrea, he was in the fish and chip shop in Burton many, many years. And his dream was to go back to his homeland. This is the one that was in South Africa. So he went back and he had goats and sheep and pigs originally. So he took over these abandoned Turkish houses, no doors and no shutters on the windows. It was a tragedy, I'm afraid. So he went out there, but unfortunately people have changed everywhere. Now when he was in the village, it's not far from Bedradurumyu. Help me somebody say the word in English.
Yeah.
Yeah. The wind, when the wind was blowing that way, they said, "Oh, your pigs stink. You have." So they sent him out the village, if you like. So he went to these abandoned villages, and I went and found him there in these places. Well, we all went one year. He lived like a hermit. He really did. And one year I went with some cousins, and how he wasn't scared. Huge snake he'd killed, and he'd hung it up in like an archway. We were petrified at the sight. It was like, and he said that's to ward off the other, and he wasn't at all scared. And he was there with his goats, his sheep, and his pigs. And honestly, he was so happy. He was living back to his roots, the earth. But unfortunately, and I don't know whether I should say this now, but
No,
no,
I don't think you should.
no, it was a sad end for him. He went back to his land, and he's buried there, in his village, but not the way none of us would have hoped anyway. But for that time, Mum and I went back for that occasion, and not a happy one. But Mum's village, when I was there, because again the mountains and the hills, to me, I could, when I came back in 1967, Dad took us all. We had the fish shop in Gerrard Street, and because we couldn't leave the fish shop, so we had to go one at a time. So Michael went out with Dad because he was poorly. Yeah. He was on convalescent, my dad. So Michael went out first, so I worked the shop with Mum.
I went out in 65.
Yeah.
I was there for 6 weeks. And they used to call me the little English girl.
And Glazua.
And Glazua. Because I'd never been to Cyprus.
No, that's
and
right.
I was only 10, 11.
Yeah.
That was your first trip to Cyprus?
That was my very first trip to Cyprus, and it was really strange for me, really strange.
Yeah.
Because as we're going up the mountains, it's cliffhanger down, and the minibus, and then the crickets are flying through, the zizirus are flying through, and then the children are picking it apart, and I'm going, Dad, what's that? Because see, I used to speak, for my first language, was speaking Dad in English, not Greek. I wasn't used to it.
No, you weren't.
And when I got out of the minibus, and they're all looking at my clothes and looking at me and saying, "Oh, where you from?" and all this and that. I'll tell you a couple of funny stories. When I went to Cyprus with my dad that year, I went to where did Auntie Peter's mum used to live?
Southern Bathurst.
So we went in the taxis, the big taxis at that time.
Yeah,
and we travelled from one end to the other. We went to Bostos Andreas, the monastery at the top, the north. Then we went to see my auntie, and this very strict woman, very stern, very
earthy person.
And she said to me, "You were going to sleep with me." And I thought, "Oh my God,
we all did it."
But she was a very kind lady. She gave me a little bunny rabbit. My bunny rabbit was brown, and I carried this bunny rabbit all the way back to every place we'd gone to. I got food to give it, carried it all the way back to my dad's village in Gadores. So the one night I put it in like where they store all the food stock and hay and stuff. And I went to my cousins down the road in my dad's village, and I stopped over with all my cousins. It was a girls' night, together. And the next morning I come back, the first thing, little girl does, I went to find my rabbit. And I looked at my rabbit and I says, "Dad, my rabbit's changed colour. It's white. I had a brown rabbit." And they're all gossiping between them, and I says, "What's going on?" He says, "Oh, it's all right. It changes colour because it's out of the sunlight." So, little English girl that I am, how naive I am, I believed it. But much later on, when we came back to England, my father told me the real story. The real story was the fox got my rabbit through the night. So they had to search the whole village to find the little English girl.
Rabbit.
Rabbit. The only one they could find was white.
I think they said that they gave you rabbit stew or something.
No, that's what my mother did.
Don't tell the story
What
yet.
time are we on now?
Well, it's just past 5.
Okay,
Oh, is
right,
it?
we'll have to round this up.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to get you to do 2 more things for me. I want you to tell me about your mum wearing the RAF outfit.
Mm-hmm.
Just, is that...
Yeah, well, as I say, Dad was in the RAF, and Mum loved the uniform. So the funny thing is, she tells everybody that she was in the RAF, you see. And she wouldn't let on that it was that. She said, no, I was in the RAF. And people did believe her, really. She told people in the fish shop and everything. But I don't know, she was, looking back now, well, I still think she's at the home. She was for a woman who only did 6 months schooling, I think, if that. Very wise, very clever, very kind, very giving and forgiving, everything. She was a wonderful woman. And I said to one of the last things I said, Mum, in Greek and in English, can you believe you're 100? She said, no, I don't believe it. I don't believe
Can
it.
I tell you one funny thing about Mum's 100th birthday? When all the cards and everything were given to Mum, she got the telegram from the Queen and the card. And she said to Anna, our younger sister, who's this card from? And Anna said to her, it's from the Queen. And she said, oh. And then she put, there's no money inside. And Anna says, no, Mum, it's from the Queen. She says, that's all right, she can afford it. So that was a nice
We've had some funny stories.
Mum was a very spirited lady.
She's spiritual as well,
and
spiritual.
Every person that came into contact with Mum loved Mum.
Well, yeah, it was one of our most read stories.
Yeah, honestly.
She was loved by all. In the home, they were heartbroken about Mum. And even the home she was being previously, they still talk about her.
So first you, Margaret, then Barbara. How would you describe your mum in, say, like 3 sentences?
A wonderful, loving, spirited lady. And she always forgave whatever. And she loved life. She really did. But she loved life through her children.
And how do you think she would feel? Did she know about the projects that...
Yes, in the Greek, the ones in the Greek church book, because, and also there was many years back, there was somebody else trying to write a story, and they came and interviewed my mum, and from the English library, so she was aware there were books, and we never did get the previous book, but yes, she did, and very quickly, Mum had the opportunity where, some years back, they found out there's a lot of uneducated adults in this country, and I arranged for Mum, and I've got the things there, where she went to school, and I've got photographs of with the librarians, and they started to teach her to write, my name is Artemis Pili, I live in, and to see my mum with a pen writing, and I used to show her books, we went through storybooks, she loved the books, the religious books, or the Queen, she loved to hear about the Queen, the royal family, but we talked lots about her homeland, and it's sad because we needed her here, we couldn't let her go and be buried there because we're all here. But she wanted to go home. And that's one thing I'm sad about. But Mum, she's there in spirit now. But Mum was spiritual. I know we haven't got time, but Mum used to have visions. Mum had visions.
She had a vision before she passed.
One thing I need to say very quickly. Mum told me dreams. She said she lost that gift afterwards. Where angels took, I'm going to cry in a minute, an angel either side, and they saw them all over the world. And they were showing her. They were showing her things, and she was very spiritual, Mum was, and she had all these visions, she had dreams, and like in the Bible, where they could translate the dreams, the dream they had when Margaret nearly lost her life is because Mum saw the black eagle come down, and then Margaret was extremely near to death, and through the dreams, they got her straight to hospital.
What happened to you?
When I was very young, some illness, I'm not too sure.
We don't, I can't imagine.
I do remember having the last rites. But they told my parents, I think if they gave me this particular tablet, it's going to go either way. It's a 50-50 chance. I don't know exactly what the illness was.
No.
I was very young, I was about 3, 4, but I know I was quite poorly. I was in hospital.
The amazing thing is, we were the only ones with a telephone in that road. And I remember my dad saying, thank God we got a phone. But they woke up from this dream with the eagle, the huge eagle, and Dad was trying to protect Margaret from the eagle.
I remember.
He was pushing her under his feet and doing this, trying to protect, because apparently in his mind, and if the eagle got to her, she would have died. The eagle didn't get to her, and he woke up, and they got an ambulance, raced it on. They said she was dying.
Picked up by my dad when I was little like that. But I just want to say the one thing about Mum. I was the last one to see my mum.
And I
saw Mum on the Sunday.
Yeah.
And she kept saying to me, as she looked in the corner of her room, who are those people over there? And I says, Mum, there's no people. I was going like this, flaying my arms around.
Yeah.
She said, no, there is. I said to her, who are they? When I realised, she kept saying it. She said, I can see Gadina. As they died, she knew, but she didn't know about the last 2 because we never told her about the last 2. I said,
She didn't know her last two sisters had
You
died.
don't know. We didn't tell her in the end.
we kept it from her.
Yeah.
What was the point? She was
No.
old. Gadina she could see, Vera she saw, and Maria.
And the baby
And then
Maria.
she looked over at the door like this. She sat up in the bed. She sat up like she looked over the door. She's Louis just come through
Dad,
the door.
that's Dad. They come to call her, didn't
And
they?
she said, "Oh, they've all come to see me."
They come to call her
But I
home.
didn't think anything of it that day.
No.
Until afterwards I thought about it and I thought, they must have come to take her. She
They
was
did.
ready to go. She was very, very tired.
And
that
you know,
day.
she went so peaceful in her sleep. And you know, the thing is, I was supposed to go that morning, but I wasn't well. I was supposed to meet the doctor there at 9 o'clock, trying to get from here to the home in the traffic. And I wasn't well. I was going to go later. But I thought, I'm not, because every time I left the home, I think we probably all did this. I wonder if this is going to be the last time. Do you know, I couldn't leave the home. I used to be there 10, 11. I used to be told off by my brother and by the staff for spending 10, 11, 12
I
hours.
thought
with my
that
mum.
day though, because she was okay. I took a good baby that day. And she had a beautiful meal, and the Greek salad and the feta and everything, and the big oranges. She
Yeah,
loved
she
the big
loved them.
oranges. And I fed her like I always did, like we all did, because Mum's hand was very trembly
sure.
towards the end. But she just was very, very tired.
She was
very
ready to
tired.
go.
But I'd seen Mum at worst, and she, you know, I
She was
didn't.
100 though, wasn't she?
She
So-
was.
Can I just say
She
very
was very
quickly, the
frail.
gumandari, I've just thought very quickly, because it's a laugh. I used to take some gumandari, Margaret and I,
did.
or a little bit of sweet martini, she used to like that. So I had these little glasses in her cupboard, and this one, I take mavruk madi or anything like that, Greek food. And it's a tiny bit, I say, Mum, just sip it. She used to go, I said, Mum, because she used to give. Anyway, this one day, she said, put the glass in, if I had a glass in simmer, and I could stop laughing. You haven't brought the gumandari to. I said, oh, Mum, I forgot. And I brought the little glasses in the bottle back. But you know, she did, and we used to laugh when Babas used to come to give her Holy Communion. She used to say to me, yes, I've had my Holy Communion, I've got some here. She used to say to me, still laugh. But she was very funny, you know. She was a very funny woman as well.
We haven't touched on the things like when we used to come here to my
Oh,
house
we
for
had some
Christmas,
lovely times here.
and we'd play cards, and she used to
Oh,
love playing
yes.
the donkey card.
Oh, the donkey.
Yeah, it's a game where whoever is left with the odd card
Has to get him on the
has to get
trigger.
up on the
Eo.
turn, beat the donkey.
Eo,
And she
Eo.
used to love it when it was her turn.
Yeah.
We never used to let her stand
Yeah.
on the chair, but she used to love going, ee-oh.
We've had, when the
She had a
children...
great life. She had a great life.
She
a
did.
hard life.
Yes,
Oh.
hard to start with, but in her later years, and we were very supportive of our mum, thank God. I mean, the youngest one's in London, the older sister's not into the Greek cooking, but Margaret and I have got lemon, everything.
Everything
And
she
I did
wanted.
everything she wanted. And I just had my black-eyed beans this week, with the anchovies, with the onion, with the bread, with the Elias. This was one of her favourite meals. When we used to eat, the doctor used to come in, always when we're eating, so I used to throw a tea. Oh, very nice, what can I do? Oh, spring onions. Oh, what's that fish? And he wanted to say, and he said, you're eating, I said, yes, doctor. Pulses, my mother was brought up on pulses, Osprey. I said to him, that's why, you know, no blood pressure, high blood pressure, no heart attack, no cancer, thank God. Arthritis, yes. From working in the cold fish and chip shops, getting the fish out the eyes, and osteoporosis, things like that. But thank God, other than that.
And what did she used to say to you? You are.
You are what you eat.
Ne.
You are what you eat.
In the defaya
She used to
budroven
say-
barostumen.
Yeah, that's
It
what she used to
is.
say.
Very clever. I never, do you know, I know my mum's words. I have conversations with her. I know her exact words, what she's going to say. It's all embedded up here. I never
There's
forget.
some funny stories about Mum. She
Yeah.
really made us laugh. There's
She
one
did.
funny one. When she was in Dudley Road Hospital the one day, Frank and I were there visiting. Doctor came to explain. So he sat on the edge of the bed, facing my mum, got his hands in her hands like this, and he's looking straight into her face and said, "Now, Artemis." As she went to speak, her false teeth were shut onto his lap. And me and Frank were just... I was just gobsmacked. I couldn't stop laughing. I couldn't move because I was laughing. He handed them back to Mum very gently and says, "Oh, I think these belong to you, Artemis." She just picked them up, put them straight in her mouth and started talking. It's so funny.
She was funny though,
She's
really.
just a character.
She was.
Sounds like a
We've got
remarkable
that on the
lady.
bus.
I obviously, I remember her. So
Yeah, of course you do, because your mum,
we were in the car with her.
you loved your mum and dad.
But it's
Talk about-
left a big hole
Well,
in our heart.
I prepared myself. I must admit, I had prepared myself because I'm a spiritual person. And I said, Lord, I did. We had a big iguana. I've got it here, a big iguana of Christ. And she used to say, Evaridica, se lo una pesaro. Mom, there he is. Speak to He doesn't listen anymore. He must have gone deaf. She said, "No, Emma, we've done." He doesn't. I said, "Mum, when the time comes and that's for Naxi, we'll call you. Everything about this, everything. Tell her about. Prepping the feel." Well, I said, we're all going to, na Bethano, she used to shout, sometimes.
Say that all the time.
Because of this business with the toilet. Na Bethano. I said, yes, Mum. And he met only mas na Bethano, man. But you tell her na feel dora. And the funny thing is, I was telling you, also means that lots of this staff, the carers, some were Polish, and Asian and whatever nationality. This one girl, what's her name? The one, Mum reverted back to Greek and stopped speaking English so much. So she used to say to me, Ella.
Oh, Ella.
Right. So then she's gabbling on in Greek, and this Polish girl said, Artemis. So she spoke to her in Polish, and Mum said to her, like this, what are you saying to me? Like that in English. And she said, well, if you don't speak to me in English, and speak to me, I'm going to speak to you in Polish. What she'd laugh, but she'd say, Ella.
They all knew the word Ella.
We used to teach them the word
At
Ella.
first they thought it was somebody's name.
Name Ella.
When we explained it to them, they say, Artemis Ella.
Everything in Greek, stamata, telofain, siga, because when they were, changing her clothes and everything, obviously your arms are very weak and siga, and then they knew these words. We used to I used to give them food to taste and everything.
What was her full name?
Artemisia is it's a very old ancient, it's the goddess of hunting,
And what was her maiden name? So give me her full name.
Jordanis.
Oh, okay, so she was Artemis.
Giordano, and then Pili, and that's another story, Pili. It's not a Pili, it's Nicolaus.
Yeah, it doesn't matter now.
But that's another story, nicknames in Cyprus, But Giordano, her father was Giordano from Trashibedula.
Right, okay, well, I'm going to have to leave it there.
I know.
Because I could talk all day,
No.
you could as well. So
Yes, we could, and then because...
what we'll do is we'll put all the footage together and then we'll have another chat later on.
Lovely.
And then we're going to do the book. And
Obviously,
then...
you've got to edit all this,
Oh,
haven't
got
you?
Yeah, of course.
So-
I know.
So,
Yeah.
do we get to see this at any
I
chance?
don't know how Eddie wants to do it. Are we going to kind of edit it down and then let everyone
Well,
see?
I think the idea was to bring everyone together.
We'll bring everyone together
Yeah.
for
premiere,
a...
like
Yeah,
so-
we're going to bring everyone. We're going to have a premiere next year.
Okay.
But we've got a lot of work to do. Between
Yeah,
Of
now
course
and
you
then.
have. Can I just ask, the footage you've taken